but the crowd.
So we're in London right now, so I need to ask as a sort of matter of personal concern, how's London doing in the Fallout universe?
Well, we're very careful how we touch on the rest of the world. We want to keep it a mystery, but we'll have to assume most of the world is destroyed as well, so.
So, why do you think video game adaptations are doing so well at the moment, especially in television?
Well, people love video games. You know, I love video games. That's why we're making this show. I love these games. And I think they're, you know, as it did with comic book movies, something that Geneva and I know a little bit about, it just took until people started approaching them with a level of love and respect, and the audience was always there.
Do you think attitudes from non-gamers have shifted?
Well, I think actually Jonah was part of that shift because, you know, when you worked on, you know, Batman, it was still very early in the transition of comic book adaptations being taken seriously, and Westworld as well was, you know, I think considered a cult classic, but some, you know, by some it was considered, you know, a fabulous concept that wasn't necessarily executed as to maximum beauty, and then Jonah and Lisa did exactly that. So I think that, you know, we're lucky. That's why I think, right? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think that's the reason we're all working with Jonah on this.
I like to say too, like, I think you have to forget that it was a video game. I like to say, like, the world of Fallout is the main character, which really helps us when we're doing the show like this, but like, the games are just one translation of the world of Fallout. So you forget that it's a game and look at the world of Fallout, present that to the audience for TV in its own way. And yeah, we're very fortunate how well it's worked out.
So I'm a gamer and my publication is for gamers. So I think something that comes up a lot for us is this idea of canon that you kind of touched on here. So I kind of wondered, do you see the TV show as kind of divergent from the game? Or is that too binary a way to kind of...
We approach it like a game. So as each game is a part of the canon, so is each season of the TV show. Now it does get tricky, right, in terms of like, what did it say in the past, or where are there opportunities to like tell more story in the past, something that I think the show does amazing. And really, you know, such a great job by everybody to keep it authentic and always honor the experience that every player had.
So player choice is something that's really important in the game world. I wondered how you translate that into TV and kind of, is that important, like to respect that? Or is it kind of more, oh, we want to make a compelling TV show?
No, that's such an interesting question. I mean, yes, the idea of agency and choice obviously is part of the incredible joy of playing a video game. And we are making as many of the choices for you when we make a show. However, we can do a version of that by having our characters face complicated moral dilemmas, and I think that's what's so delicious about Fallout is you're constantly in the games facing one incredibly juicy moral dilemma after another, and you know we've tried our best to do that, throw our characters into similar situations.
Interesting. So how does that collaboration look between, I guess, you guys and then Bethesda, and determining what might be canon?
The central problem you've got with the whole concept of canon, I have a very love-hate relationship with the word canon, is that the games themselves contradict. You know, if you have ambiguous endings, one of the things I love about the games, one of the reasons these are my favorite games is because they are wide open. You can be the bad guy, you can be the good guy, you can be whoever you like. That to me is the full promise of a video game, interactive experiences, that you can mold the experience to your own desires, which means that every game ends in different ways, right? So there, in that sense, there is no canon, right? The canon is determined by the player, and I think the way in which Geneva and Graham have approached that is quite delicious. First and foremost, making an ensemble show, which I thought was a brilliant decision, because the first decision you make in Fallout, where my wife and I often get stuck at the beginning of Fallout, is what does your character look like? That's the first hour of gameplay in our household. So that decision to make it an ensemble where you can have three different characters at first, and then the ensemble grows, but different characters who represent different paths that gamers could have taken, I think was a brilliant way to do it. But inherently, if you're going to adapt a game like this, you're going to have to make some decisions. And I think there was a moment early on where we kind of realized, like, oh, we can do this without contradicting anything that happen in the games, and really be as close to canon as we can be.
I think a lot of the fun for gamers is kind of discussions on the internet about, theories and stuff. I wondered if you guys were kind of aware of stuff on like Reddit. Is that something you look at?
Oh, hell no. I think you have to be so, we talk about this all the time, you have to be so careful with how much you're looking and how much you're engaging with that. You really have to follow your own instincts. I don't know, how do you think?
Well, some of it Graham would just bring up to me constantly, so it was just sort of whether I liked it or not, I was sometimes hearing what Reddit was saying. So I would try to shut it out, but Graham is very good at reading it all. Yes, Graham is my personal Reddit.
I read a lot of it. I'm a Reddit fan. And I think, on the game side, like, that's our community. And so it's always so active, like we're updating the game. So what they're seeing a lot of value in, what's special to them, it's good to have that in the back of your mind. And like where you have your own sort of priorities, like, hey, we like this, and where there's a match, you can, it gives you sort of the confidence to lean in more on some of those things. But sometimes there's a mismatch, but like creatively, this is where we're taking things. And I would say season 2, there's a lot of surprises. Right, and it's a weekly show, so I'm very interested to see what the chatter is week on week.
Oh,
yes,
boy.
There's a lot of surprises.
So let's talk quickly about Shady Sands, and obviously that was a choice that you made. It didn't appear in the game, of course, but what was the conversation like in deciding, okay, we're going to blow this place up?
That was a conversation.
Well, I think, we want to show, our show is set after the events of the Fallout games. And so we always try as much as possible to be true to the lore and the canon. We do care deeply about getting it right and honoring it, but we also don't feel that it would be truthful to say that time has gone by and everything has remained the same in all parts of the wasteland as like when you finish playing the game. Like that just doesn't also seem true to a wasteland environment where different factions are jockeying for power every second of every day. And so it's natural that there would be change in who's in charge, who went to war with whom, who won, and that these questions might also depend on who you ask. I mean, Jonah and I, and Graham and Todd, we've all talked about a lot about how, in the wasteland, so much of history is probably dependent on who you ask, and sort of there's the mists of time element to it all. So that is sort of our approach as we talk about changes from when the last games, left a certain part of the wasteland and the choices that we then make for maybe imagining what happens next.
Was that one of the ideas that I think you guys came up with so brilliant about how to deal with the multiple different endings of New Vegas? I think it's a spoiler alert because those games are taking place 10 to 15 years before the show picks up. Is this wonderful idea, and I'm getting fucking old now, so I can see in the world the way this works, right? And it's the truth is that 10 to 15 years after some major conflict. And you think about the end of that game, you're the player, you get to decide how that conflict ends, basically. I was sided with Yes Men, but you can, you can side with House, you can side with the NCR, you can side with Legion. So how do you resolve that in a linear, narrative? And the answer was, well, in the fog of war, everyone you run into in New Vegas 15 years later thinks their faction won that war, which is kind of brilliant because that's how the world works. I mean, you sort of looking at it right now and all the calamitous shit that's happening in the world, that we're in. Everyone has their own perspective of it. Everyone thinks that they won, which I thought was a very almost a romantic way to address a game with multiple endings.
Totally, and I think the other things that we had in mind as we made those choices were, the very central theme, right? Of course, is war never changes, and so we have to first and foremost dramatize that theme, and to us that was a way of doing so. But we do know that obviously it's very important to the lore that there are places where civilization and hope are sprouting up, and I would say we just haven't explored very much of the wasteland yet. We've been very regional to the LA area, and now going on sort of our specific characters' trek to Vegas. And so we are excited to keep expanding as a show and learn about where is maybe civilization starting to blossom again, and where has it started to blossom and then been shut down. Like these are what we hope to explore as a show, and our canvas has not been very big yet, as sort of scopy as our show is in each season.
Do you guys think of the game as optimistic?
At the end of the day, yeah. You're right. Yeah. Like, Fallout 4 is quite a hopeful story. And I think that's a thread underneath it all. And through it, every character, what will they do to survive? And do you agree with them or not agree with them? And there's good in everybody, and there's perception of, bad, depending on who's telling the story. But yeah, there is a thread of, hey, civilization's gonna come back up and we're all gonna survive this. Or you can look at it as a player or a viewer and say, well, maybe you are surviving. That is your world. Maybe that is it.